Hey guys, welcome to another FATthoughts video after half a year maybe, but today we're going to be talking about my games of 2019. Now, I am a bit sick, a bit ill. The new year has not been kind to me in that regard, so I do apologise if my voice is a bit raspy. But today we're going to be talking about my favourite games of 2019 and the games that I played in 2019 in general, really. There was so many this year, to be honest. In fact, this year was kind of like, the scales from the beginning to the end of the year were like that, because the start of the year had like nothing, and the end of the year like broke the scale pretty much. Like, I actually did not like how the schedule was for releasing games this year. For some reason, everyone just thought to release them in like November. I think it was August to November, December time that everyone just decided that's when we're doing it. I know everyone wants to get like the Christmas sales and that, but I actually think they cannibalized a few of the sales because they just tried to beat each other. And there's actually a few games that I've got here that I will be surprised if they've sold that many, because they just got released alongside big games that, you know, and they weren't big games. So yeah, we'll see. Now, the format this year is obviously a bit different from last year. Last year I did a scripted video of my top 5 games. This year I'm going to just be doing just a bit of a ramble on what I liked and didn't like, and I'm going to put them into just my rating categories of V1 to V5, and then I'll tell you my favourite game of the year at the end. Now, the rules are the same as last time. These are just the games that came out this year, regardless of whether they're a remake, remaster, re-release. If they came out this year, they are eligible for Game of the Year in my eyes. So yes, there are quite a lot of re-releases and remasters this year, especially on Switch, which is the main primary console that I play. So any other console exclusives that came out for PlayStation, PC, Xbox, or even Stadia, even Stadia, I wouldn't have played, so they won't be here on this list. This is coming from a very Switch perspective. So with that said, we've got a lot to dig into, so let's start off. So first off, coming from Platonic Games and published by Team 17, good job lads, this is Ukulele and the Impossible Lair. This was the most recent game that I finished, I believe. It came out September time. Like I said, there was so much to play that I didn't end up finishing it until a few weeks ago. But what a game this is! It's brilliant. I never played the first Ukulele, and I heard lukewarm things about it. I've never been a massive, Banjo-Kazooie fan. I didn't grow up on the N64 or anything like that. I grew up on PlayStation and Crash Bandicoot. So Banjo was never my thing. I did try it a few years ago when I got an N64. I got about halfway through it. I wasn't so blown away by it that I really wanted to finish it, but I enjoyed what I played. So I was interested in seeing Ukulele because I do like 3D platformers, and I miss the genre, to be honest, back when it was booming in the early 2000s. Then I heard a lukewarm reception for the first game, and I was like, okay. I mean, it might be good anyway, because a lot of the 3D platformers back then had all sorts of issues, and it sounds like they really wanted to pay homage to that by adding like all the issues as well. But sometimes it doesn't make for a better game, so I can see where people are coming from. I still want to get it at some point, but they've charged a ridiculous amount for it on the Switch. It's about £35, I think, which is absolutely ridiculous. That's a full-priced game for what, for a 15 to 20 hour game. I don't know about that, Platonic. That was a bit of a weird move, especially with how cheap you release it on other consoles. But I'll get one at another point. Unfortunately, they didn't release a physical version of it, but they did release a physical version of the second game, Ukulele and Impossible Lair. And I gotta say, this is one of the best bargains on the Switch. And holy crap, this is one of the best 2D platformers I've ever played. I was saying last year that Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze absolutely sort of blew me away and made me realise how good 2D platformers can be. And then Ukulele and Impossible Lair is very similar to Donkey Kong Country, which you'd imagine so, coming from Rare, the guys who made Donkey Kong Country originally. It does its own thing enough to be its own thing. I mean, it's got its own character designs, its own levels and world creations, and it's got its own theme, but it does still feel much like Donkey Kong Country, which I don't mind personally. I find it more of a tribute, and even if it was a carbon copy, it is an insanely good carbon copy. It does have its own thing with the overworld, which many have said is the best bit of the game, which is insanely good. It's almost like a top-down Zelda crossed with Banjo-Kazooie. The top-down view of the overworld, it's got all sorts of puzzles and nooks and crannies and collectibles to find in there. Not just to boost your abilities up and what have you, with the tonics you can find, which I'll get into in a minute, but you'll also have the fact that you can change levels. So you'll have one level, this book that you enter, and then you can press a lever and some water will come and flow over the book, and then the level changes so it's underwater now. And the level changes enough for it to be a new level, but you still recognise set pieces from the first level, so it feels great. It's genius, if I'm honest. I'm very surprised that no one's ever really thought to do anything like that to this extent before, and I think there was something like it in the first game, but the application here was, the variety of the application was all over the place. It's fantastic. And the music is on top form as well. There's some fantastic tracks in here. Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, obviously I love that soundtrack, and while this one isn't quite as good, it's definitely fantastic. I really do dig this soundtrack. As I was saying before, you can collect tonics, and this is what really elevates the game past Donkey Kong Country, I think, in terms of things you could do outside of the levels. I do think I like Tropical Freeze a bit more, but this was very close. And the fact that these tonics are in the game almost sold it alone for me, because what you have is you have all these different tonics that do different things, and some of them can increase or decrease your quill multiplier, and quills are the collectibles you collect in the levels. They're kind of like your currency, but you'll earn less quills if you stick on more of the helpful tonics. And if you stick on more tonics that make the game more difficult, you'll earn more quills, and that is probably the best difficulty slider, I guess you could say, I've ever seen in a game. That was like I said, alone, that made me almost buy the game just right then and there. That was the icing on the cake, as it were. And the levels are beautifully designed as well. The secrets are really fun to find. Pretty much everything that I loved about Tropical Freeze, I loved in this game too. There isn't as much variety in terms of the themes of the world. There's like, it kind of reminds me of Crash Bandicoot in a way. The tropical setting. You have more wood, you have some wooden forts, you have factories, that sort of thing. So that thing's all sort of been done before, but like I said, they do give their unique take on it, and it is very enjoyable. Something that is a bit less enjoyable is the presentation. You can tell it's an indie game. I guess indie. Is it indie? Classes indie? I would say it's classed as indie. You can tell it's not a full AAA game, that's for sure. The models look great, everything looks great. It just doesn't have that extra level of polish or detail that you'd get from like Donkey Kong, for example. And some of these screen transitions are quite stuttery and not as smooth as they could be, especially when you find a new area on the map. The map will get scrubbed off, and sometimes it's like that, and it just doesn't look great. It's like where you can tell it's not as developed as it could be, but it's very, there's no stuttering in the gameplay, which is the main thing. It's smooth, 60 frames per second all the way through. It's buttery smooth, it's great. There were a few stutters here and there, but like it was always when like something was loading. It was never when I was actually playing the game, so it didn't bother me whatsoever. There is some strange clipping that goes on in some levels as well. There was one where, I'll actually put it on screen now if I can find it, but it was like this glitch where it looked like I could go in this alcove to find a secret, I assumed, but then I glitched through it. And I didn't get this bit on camera, but I ended up swimming down to another part of the level where I was not supposed to be in water, and I could just swim through these like rotating platforms, and it was very strange. I tried to replicate it, but I couldn't do it again. But there was quite a few times like that where it was just like little clipping. That glitch there was the biggest discovery I found of that sort of thing. But yeah, Ukulele and Impossible Lair was one of the best games that I played this year, if I'm honest. I did hear really good things about it going in, so I was expecting to have a good time with it. And at first I was kind of like just thinking, well, it's Donkey Kong, I'm having a good time. But then later on I thought, wow, this is actually really quite incredible. So I'd definitely say pick it up. It didn't release to much fanfare, I don't think, because of the first game's lukewarm reception, and it did come out in like a very competitive area in terms of games. But if you have a spare £15-20, go pick it up, because you won't regret it. It's, like I said, one of the best games of the year, and I give it a V5 out of V5. So next up is the one I probably have the most to say about, as do a lot of people, I imagine, because it was one of the most controversial games of the year. It's Pokemon Sword and Shield, I guess. It's, as you know, developed by Game Freak and Creatures, I believe. Yeah, this was published by Nintendo, of course. This was a wild ride, I suppose. Now, I won't go into the whole backstory because that'll take a while, but Pokemon used to be my favourite series. It was the series that I always look forward to every year. It was the reason why I bought systems. I bought the DS, 3DS, all pretty much Nintendo's handhelds just for Pokemon. And then around, I'd say after Pokemon X, I started getting a bit not tired of the series. I just thought, I don't feel like this is for me anymore. I feel like they were adding a load of new features that I didn't really like. It messed with the formula to a point where it didn't make it feel fresh, it just made it feel really gimmicked, and it kind of messed with it in a way I didn't like. I didn't like Mega Evolutions, I wasn't a fan of Z moves especially. Didn't like the fact that they purposely omitted content from the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire games, the remakes of Ruby and Sapphire. They didn't put any Emerald content in there, and it's kind of a stark contrast to Heart Gold and Soul Silver's development, where the developers really wanted to put everything they could in for the players, whereas with Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire it felt like they cut corners. And it kind of felt like, it's felt like that ever since, to be honest. It kind of felt like it in Pokemon X with the very no post game, but ever since then it's felt, yeah, not great, to be honest. I wasn't super impressed by Gen 7 either, but the thing about Pokemon is the formula is just so strong and it's just so fun as a game that even the worst Pokemon games I still have a really good time with. And that's kind of what happened here. They're definitely, I think they're my least favourite games in the main series. And we'll get into that in a minute, but for now I'll just say that they just feel very bare bones and they feel very hollow. I think we should probably get the elephant out of the room, and that is the National Dex cut. I kind of wasn't totally surprised by this because they didn't even include the National Dex in Gen 7, so that was probably their way of, you know, sort of telling the player base we're going to be cutting a load of Pokemon. But for the first home console main series release, that's when you decide to do it. That's kind of bizarre to me. I was still surprised by the announcement. It was kind of one of those things that was like in the back of my head, I could think, I won't be, you know, hugely surprised, but when I heard it, I was like, oh, what do they mean by that? And then we found out that they actually cut in about 400 Pokemon from the game, and I was like, oh, okay. Now, in terms of single player, this didn't bother me at all, but in terms of competitive player, multiplayer, this really bothers me. I don't know why they did this. I mean, I know why they did it. They explained that, you know, they had to work on new animations and all that nonsense, but which does not justify it at all because the game's presentation is kind of horseshit. It looks like a upscaled handheld game. I'll go so far as to say by Switch standards, it looks kind of terrible, especially in places like the wild area. That area does not look good at all, especially when you're online and you can see the game just really struggling to keep it together. Sorry to jump around, you know, here and there, but I was upset by the Dex cut, but I was kind of indifferent on the game anyway because of my feelings towards the Pokemon series in general. But this made me go, oh, that's kind of really sucky that. I'm not a fan of that. So when I went into the game, I was looking out for things to justify why they cut the Dex, and I know some people are kind of happy about the Dex cut for, you know, competitive reasons, what have you, but I would rather have everyone there and be able to pick whoever I want and have just every Pokemon there than, you know, have maybe a more balanced metagame or what have you. That's my personal take on it. I just love being, even if I don't use Pokemon like Maractus or what have you, just the fact that people can use them and I'll be like, oh, do you know what I mean? It keeps Pokemon relevant. It keeps all these great characters relevant. And I love every Pokemon, to be honest. I really love. I have no disdain or dislike for any Pokemon. Kind of don't see why people get so up in arms about some Pokemon designs. And the Pokemon designs this time around were fantastic. So it just like it stung a bit more. Like I thought, I'm not really going to be, you know, trying the multiplayer aspect out. And yeah, that sucked. The single player wise, you can also see where the game had crunch time on it. There's so many times in the story where you'll hear a bang or something and think, right, okay, now I need to go and sort that out. You know, I'm the hero. And then, you know, the champion will come out, or one of the many characters, and go, no, don't worry, just carry on your gym journey. And it just railroads you into this very straight path, even though the game tries to, on the outside, show you that it's a big, massive world. It's really not. It's probably one of the smallest regions, it feels like. There's no dungeons or anything to explore like that. You know, the few caves that they have is like a very straight path with no boulder pushing mechanics and stuff like that. And I was going to blame the lack of HMs for this, but then I realised that Gen 7 still had puzzles and whatnot. Maybe not to the extent of previous games, but it still had some puzzles. And they got away with that with the ride pages, so they could have done it with here. They could have done it here somehow. I don't know how, like, but it's not hard, is it, to incorporate that kind of thing. The game also was pretty easy, but credit where credit's due. The EXP share was handled very well in this game. I didn't really feel like I was overleveled at any point, to be honest, and it did help me, save me from grinding or having to. It felt very convenient in this time round, whereas in previous games it's felt like a crutch. But they found a way to implement it well, so credit for that. But going back to feeling the crunch as well, you really can, because there's some cutscenes at the start of the game that they just never do again. They're full cutscenes, which, by the way, feel very cheap because they have no voice acting. And I'm not one to advocate for voice acting in Pokemon. I don't really mind them being silent even on a console game, but the way they display it visually and then don't have the audio to back it up, it looks really bad. It does. The first cutscene where, you know, they're in that massive stadium, it's all being set up and everyone's like hype as hell, and then the chairman comes up, starts speaking, and he's just like, and it just looks awful. So presentation wise, it doesn't look great, and you know, gameplay wise, they've cut not just Pokemon, but they've cut moves, they cut dungeons. They've just got rid of so much when this is the time when it should be the opposite. It should be more of everything. It's Pokemon, it's this big, huge franchise. But unfortunately, I think they've been stuck to this very strict time frame of having to develop the game and get it out by the end of the year. I saw someone comparing it to Animal Crossing, where Animal Crossing can get delayed. It got delayed till next year to polish the game up a bit more. Pokemon can't have that privilege because it's such a big franchise and it's got all these contracts and deals going on that the games need to come out then. And like I said, unfortunately, because of the Dex cut, a lot of Pokemon won't be relevant for quite a few years, or a year, you know, depending on when they release the next one, like they seem to do every year. I just think Pokemon is too big of a franchise, like an RPG series, to be released each year. You know, when yearly releases only really hurt games. You know, you've seen it with franchises like Assassin's Creed, especially with how much more difficult games are to develop these days. But you know, saying all that, like I said, I did have a fun time with it, but when I look back on the game, I just think, Christ, that was so hollow. I really don't fancy going back to it. And every time I think about going back to it, I think, well, I've done everything. You know, I did the little tiny post-game story they had, and now there isn't really much more to do apart from competitive, which the game has really, you know, made improvements in and strides in. But you know, because of the massive Dex cut, I'm not interested, and that does blow, to be honest. And it's kind of the game that's made me think. I have fun with it, but it's the game that's made me think, I think I might be done with the main series now. You know, the spin-offs I can still have fun with. I still liked Mystery Dungeon. Pokemon was kind of cool. But the main series, this doesn't set a good precedent for it. And I was very close to skipping out on this one. And I think I'll probably skip out on the ones in the future unless they really turn it around. Dynamaxing, you know, the new battle gimmick they released, stupid. I really didn't like it. I did like how confined they kept it. They only kept it to gym battles and a few boss battles. But that ruined the gym battles for me, to be honest. I thought the gym battles could have been... They were actually really good, the gyms, by the way. I think they're some of the best they've ever been in the series, especially with the focus on them. The gym leaders themselves, as soon as it came to the Dynamax Pokemon, I was like, just stall it out for 3 turns. And I don't think I Dynamaxed once, because I just wanted a traditional Pokemon game. And I know if I wanted a traditional one, I could go play an older Pokemon game, which I did last year. I played Heart Gold, and I've only played that, I think that was my 3rd playthrough of the game, and I thought, Christ, I forgot how fun Pokemon can be and how good it can be without all these needless gimmicks. You know, that game is considered the best in the series, and sometimes I think maybe it's just not for me anymore, maybe I've grown out of it. But then I play a game like Heart Gold and think, no, these games can be very good. We got Sword and Shield, and it was fun, but can I call it good? I'd call it probably average, to be honest. But most importantly, it is fun, I suppose, and that is the thing you want out of a game. Altogether, guys, sorry for my little ramble there about this game. I just have so many thoughts on it. But yeah, it's a disappointment, is to say the least. I will say the music is great. I really enjoyed Marnie's theme. I think that's one of my favourite themes in the series as a whole now. There was a few others as well that I couldn't quite remember off the top of my head. And before I finish, actually, I just remembered because of Marnie, but the city where you've got to get that gym badge, that her relative's gym badge, that town was completely crunch time. You can tell they probably wanted to make a full town out of it, but instead, because of the crunch, they had to make just a corridor and the gym leader, and it was shit. Not to mention Team Yell. Christ, I won't even mention them, but if they were in the game, I don't think it would have been any different at all, in story-wise. The story was also shit as well, because it kind of just went from 0 to 100 for no good reason. Everything about this game, apart from the gameplay, if I think about it, it just makes me go, Christ, they just rushed everything. Everything but the gameplay, which even in then, they cut out the dungeons and that, so they rushed everything. It's just lucky that the main formula is so good, so... Overall, guys, I'll stop it there. Pokemon Sword and Shield, I'll say I liked. I like them. I don't think I'll go back to them, though. So next up is Witcher 3, the Complete Edition by CD Projekt Red. This is a game that I was super hyped to come to the Switch, even though, you know, it did have visual downgrades, a bit of performance downgrades as well from the other versions, but I don't really mind, to be honest. If I'm not spoiled by another version, I don't really mind. I've only played an hour of it so far, to be honest. It's a game that I want to go back to, but I am liking it. I won't rate this one because I've only just started playing it, but I'm going to go back to it after I've finished some games that I'm currently playing. So I'll mention that I got Witcher 3 Complete Edition, but I haven't played enough of it to really rank it. So here we have the first of a few JRPGs, Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition. This, I thought at the start of the year this was going to be my game of the year. I mean, it still might be, but I thought, how can anything top this? This was an incredible 80 hours of game time. It's my first Tales game. I can't remember what made me buy it, to be honest. I think I don't know what it was. I think I just saw it and thought, that looks kind of nice. It kind of reminded me of, and I know Tales of is the like third pillar of JRPGs in Japan. You know, it goes Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, then Tales of, and I was like, I'll give Tales of a try. And every time I get into a new, like, well-known JRPG series, I just see what sets them apart from the others and what makes them so great. And Tales has surpassed Xenoblade, in my opinion, or Tales of Vesperia, really. No, actually no, because, well, I'll say in a minute, but the Tales series, the bar it's set for character interaction has surpassed Xenoblade for me. Just by a bit, but it does have a big advantage in the best part of the game, in my opinion, the skits. These are very unique to the Tales series from what I understand, and there's loads of them. And in Tales of Vesperia, they're all voiced. Nearly all of the game is voiced. These skits are like little portraits that come up with all the characters, and they'll just have a chat every so often, sometimes about what's going on in the story, sometimes some really silly stuff, sometimes some personal stuff, and there's so many of them, and I enjoyed all of them. It just made the characters feel so alive, and like I said before, especially with Definitive Edition, they brought back a lot of the voice actors to record more lines, and I'd say maybe 95%, 98%, I don't know why I went to 98, 95% of the cutscenes are fully voiced now. But the characters are the best thing about this game by far. The story was also really good, it really intrigued me. Towards the end I was like, I didn't not like it, but there was a few things the characters did that kind of just was what they did earlier, but over again, and it was like, huh, this again. But I don't think you'd really notice that too much if you didn't binge the game like I did. And I enjoyed the game so much that even like just before the final boss, I was still trying to find side quests and things to do just to keep playing. That is one thing I will say about the game that I really don't like, and I played Tales of Symphonia not long after Vesperia, and it was the same thing there, so I think it's probably just a Tales thing. But how they handle their side quests is awful. I hate it. There's no quest log, and there's so many quests for you to do, but you cannot keep track of them at all. And there's some really good quests in there. Luckily in Vesperia, the Definitive Edition, they fixed some missable items that you could miss in the original game by just not doing these very specific things at specific times in the story, and it just became like, I don't know why you'd think to do that, and it was kind of stupid. Luckily, like I said, they fixed it in the Definitive Edition, but you still don't have a way to keep track of your quests, or even how to start them. And sometimes they'll give you a hint of what to do next, but it is so vague. And actually I had one where this guy told me to go to this place, or he gave me an idea of where to go, and I went to this place and couldn't find anything to do to progress the side quest. And then I looked online about it, and it turns out that he told me to go to this place, but I actually had to go and talk to someone else to tell me to go to him first, for him to tell me to go to this place, so that the person in this place will be here for me to speak to. And I was like, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So when I go through it again, I am going to have to go through with a guide, I reckon, because the amount, I think there's quite a lot of side quests and extra stuff to do, but the extra legwork you have to put in to find these is just ridiculous. But everything else about the game I absolutely loved. I like the story, I loved the characters, the music was fantastic, the graphics are superb, they hold up all these years later, and with a new remastered coat of paint, they look even better. Yeah, I loved it, and after playing Tales of Symphonia 2, the Tales series has cemented itself as one of my favourites, I'd say, in gaming. I know the newer ones have sort of gone a bit off road in terms of how the game plays. It's kind of left the Tales roots from what I understand, so I'm kind of apprehensive about playing those. But a few of the older Tales games to come out in that golden era from like Symphonia up until, I can't remember what it is, like a 2010 game I think. I want to play all those, I'm really interested. Kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy, how I only want to play specific games in the series, because I know some are a bit like, But the two Tales games that I've played are fantastic, and Vesperia absolutely gets a V5 out of V5. This game was incredible. If you can find it on the cheap, or which you can now actually, because Bandai Namco have been doing a few sales, I would definitely recommend picking it up. It is definitely one of my games of the year. Yuri, the protagonist of Tales of Vesperia, is probably my favourite protagonist, alongside Shulk in any game. At first when I saw his character design, I was like, I didn't really like how he looked, but then, that doesn't really matter by the end of it, because he does things in this game that really surprised me, and I really liked. It was very refreshing to see, and the whole cast of characters I really love too, but Yuri especially is a very big standout, and he was voiced excellently by Troy Baker. And they actually included 2 new characters to this game. Well, one brand new character that was in the PS3 port apparently, which was Japanese exclusive, and then the other one which doesn't join your party permanently in the original game but does in this one. But they've integrated this brand new character so seamlessly into the story that I wonder, how was she not there before? Like, it makes me intrigued to see the 360 original game, to see how it was without her, because they did a fantastic job of putting her in here. It was kind of like, I don't know how it would work without her. Absolutely massive props for that, and I really appreciated all the extra stuff in the game. Next up is Collection of Mana, published by Square Enix and developed by probably Square Enix, to be honest. I don't really know. There's 3 different games in here, but it's a collection of the first 3 Mana games: Final Fantasy Adventure or Mystic Quest if you live here in Europe, Secret of Mana and Trials of Mana, which the West never got before, and the Trials of Mana has never been released outside of Japan. So it's kind of like having a brand new SNES game in 2019. I've completely forgot the year then. That's incredible though, and I've been playing through the games. I had a really big nostalgic trip for Mystic Quest, even though I never played the game before. Just the fact playing through it on like, a Game Boy screen, hearing the classic Game Boy sound chip and all that sort of thing. It was great. It was a nice little 5 to 10 hour adventure. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm currently playing through Secret of Mana. I haven't played, all the way through it yet. I'm struggling to stay with it, and I'm not too sure why. I am enjoying it, and the game's a lot smaller than I thought it was, in terms of the world. I'm just struggling to come back to it every now and then. I think I just need to sort of force myself to play, because when I'm playing it, I'm having a great time. It's just when it's one of those games that when I think about playing, I'm like, I might play something else, and I end up playing one of the many other games that I got. So it's a great collection, and you can get it for a lot cheaper than I bought it for these days. You can get it for around £20 to £25 now, which is a good price, I think. So yeah, I would definitely recommend picking this up if you're feeling a bit nostalgic, or even if you are interested in seeing these games. The reason I got it is because I wanted to play Secret of Mana, which is one of the classic RPGs of all time, really. I'm glad I picked it up, definitely, and I will get back to it at some point. So I won't rank it for now. I will just say that in terms of a collection, there isn't a huge amount of stuff. There's a sound player, and that's about it, to be honest. There's no art gallery or anything like that, or little fun flavor text descriptions of stuff. It's just the 3 games and a sound player. It is presented nice, but they could have done a bit more on the collection presentation side of things. Now, speaking of collections, I did get a couple more this year, one of them being the Hotline Miami collection on the Nintendo Switch. I was super excited to play these games. I actually got shown the soundtrack by a friend about a year or 2 ago, and I was like, holy crap, this is really good. And he was like, yeah, you should really play the games. So I waited for them to come to Switch, and as soon as they did, I picked them up. And I love both of them. I thought they were absolutely spot on, fantastic. I think I like the second game a bit more, which I think is the unpopular opinion. I do completely see where people are coming from, because some of the maps are incredibly big in that game, and you can't really see what's shooting at you. You either have to play it a bit slower or just more skillful, with like dodging stuff. But I did really like this. I like both of them, to be honest. I still haven't finished everything in the game, so I can't wait to get back to them. But the music, there's a reason why the soundtrack for the games are so famous. It's the reason why I wanted the games. It's one of the major reasons why I like the games. Pick up this if you find it on the cheap. I do think it is a bit pricey on the Switch at the moment. It's about £21 normally. If they do it for a sale, I'd definitely pick them both up. On the collection side of things, kind of like Collection of Mana, they don't really have anything. It's literally just 1, 2. It's just the games on a selection screen. That's about it. Could have been put in a bit more effort there, but in terms of both games, I will give both of them a V5 out of V5. I'm handing out V5s like crazy at the moment, but I really like them both. I actually want to go through and play them again, to be honest. They're just the easy games to slip in and have fun with. So yeah, Hotline Miami collection, definitely pick it up. Now, a game that I wasn't expecting to pick up at all this year was a game called The Tourist. I do apologise, I can't remember who developed it, but I'll flash it on screen, so sorry about that. But this was a very interesting game. It very much reminded me of Little Big Adventure, one of my favourite games of all time, Little Big Adventure and Little Big Adventure 2. It's an isometric adventure game, adventure puzzle game, and it was like a blast from the past, to be honest. It was kind of crazy. I was playing it, I was like, this feels very similar to Little Big Adventure, like the feeling that Little Big Adventure gives me. And it wasn't just me, I saw another review outlet say that too, and I was like, there you go, it's confirmed. My second opinion. But it was an interesting game, and it's one that I think I would have liked a lot more if it had a concrete story. Now the game is kind of mystical, you know, the game's just, the start of the game is you ending up on this island, this beautiful island by the way. The game looks incredible and it plays buttery smooth. It's 60 frames per second. It looks great. Yeah, that's the reason I picked it up is the music that I heard in the trailer and the graphics too, and the presentation, because it's all top notch. But anyway, yeah, you end up on this island and then you go into this statue thing, and then this old man tells you he wants you to find his 4 orbs, and then you have to go around these islands finding them, and that's essentially the story. It's essentially just a massive to-do list, and that's kind of what the quests are in the game. It's called a to-do list, and it's a massive to-do list, and there isn't really any development in the story or characters, and a lot of it is kind of like, it could be up for interpretation, what it all means and stuff like that. But I think the gameplay is a bit too shallow to sort of carry it by itself. I did have a good time with the game, don't get me wrong, I ended up beating it and completing it actually, but it only took about 5 hours, not long at all. And the game is very fun, it has quite a few varieties of activities to keep you interested. There's some platforming, the really cool areas are the ruins that you find the orbs in. They're really cool, they've got the most puzzles. The side quests are kind of like, oh, I wonder where this is, or I wonder how to get that over here, and that kind of thing. That's really enjoyable. I will say I think my most disappointing thing about the game was I don't even mind the story. I do mind the story. I was about to say I don't even mind it. I don't mind the story enough for it to completely ruin the game for me. But it was kind of like, I do feel kind of aimless at times, and I kind of felt like there wasn't really anything going on. I was like, why am I doing this? It's just because the game was really quite fun to play. But it was kind of like, I feel like I'm doing chores at one point. And the biggest thing for me was the music. There's no music. The thing that drew me into the game was the music in the presentation, and half of it was not really there. There's a lot of atmospheric sounds, like the beach and stuff like that. The place where the music is you've got the ruins, which have really good music. Underwater, when you go diving, that's fantastic music. And then a DJ party, and all those songs there are great, but they're only at that DJ party. There's no background music when you're doing your exploring and stuff like that. And so when there's no story and you kind of feel a bit aimless, and you just sort of stood there, there's no music. So it kind of you just sort of stood there like, and yeah, that was disappointing. I'm not gonna lie. I wish you could have unlocked a Sony Walkman, because it's kind of set in it's kind of got like an 80s vibe. You know, you've got the guy looking like an 80s tourist, I suppose, or 70s tourist. You've got record shops and arcades, which the arcade games in there are legit, by the way. They're like full arcade games. That's really fun. I love the break one. I can't remember what it's called, but I really like that one. You know, it's very 80s inspired, that sort of thing. This game even, and it was fun. Altogether, it was fun. But I will only say that I liked it. It was disappointing, if I'm honest. I thought more of it. I thought I was going to get more out of it. I was really happy that it felt like a Little Big Adventure, but the fact they didn't have a story or any really background music kind of killed it for me. But the game is not that long, so you can still have a really good time with it. If you find it for around a tenner, if it goes down to that much, or you get it on sale on the eShop, give it a go. It's a fun game. Just don't pay full price for it. It's not worth nearly £20. So one of my biggest contenders for my favourite game this year is Dragon Quest XI S, Echoes of the Elusive Age Definitive Edition. That's not nice to say when you're ill. This game was incredible. It's everything that I thought it would be. I started playing it on the PS4 last year. I finished it here. It's kind of hard to put my thoughts onto it, to be honest. I loved pretty much everything about it, and they added so much content in the Definitive Edition that I couldn't even list it all here. That'll be its own video. I love the characters, I love the adventure, I love how the game makes you feel. The game does, I will say, the game does pull quite a different turn in the second half. I was like, oh, and it didn't feel so Dragon Questy. But then it sort of comes back around and you're like, wow. But like the game, in terms of storytelling, I think this is probably the best story that Dragon Quest has ever told. Probably between that and Dragon Quest V, I reckon. Christ, this was really something. It really hit me at the heartstrings. I was doing, there was so many times where I'll be like, what? No. And you know, that just shock of what I was seeing, especially for a Dragon Quest game which plays it very safe half the time, which this is one of the reasons why I play it. But in this way, I liked it. I did like it, and it was refreshing for the series, but without going against its traditions, which, like I said, is what I love the series for. The artwork is fantastic, the storyline is great, the music, while I've heard many people not like the music, Dragon Quest music's always been, for me, great for the game, and really just feels like Dragon Quest music. But outside the game, I do struggle to listen to it. I just don't find it as very catchy, or, you know, I don't find them very good to listen to outside the game, but it really does fit the game itself, so I don't mind it too much. And in this version, you have the symphonic soundtrack, which I didn't mind the synthesized one, but the symphonic one does blow it out of the water. Especially the big, like when you go into the main fields of the game, and you hear the bomb, bomb, bom, bom, bom. But when you hear that compared to the synthesized one, it's night and day. The voice acting is also fantastic. I love Dragon Quest voice acting. It's so corny and cheesy, but like without being bad. It like really treads that line very well. And I loved all the voice actors. I loved all the characters. Just a very, very, very fun time. And the game had, like I said, has so much content. You'll be playing for over 100 hours. I think I'm on 120 hours at the moment. And I will mention a little spoiler here, so I'll wait a few seconds. Okay, here we go. The post-game is incredible. A few people say they weren't fans of it, but if you see it as a bonus to the main game, it's probably the best post-game I've ever seen in any game. And you'll see what I mean when you get there. But if you really are interested in this game, really do give it a shot. I've seen a few people get put off by the beginning. I don't know why, to be honest. I think this is one of the best RPG beginnings you can have. There's not any drawn-out tutorial sequences or anything like that. It's as traditional as it gets in a good way. So if you do play the game and you find yourself not liking it for the first maybe 0 to 5 hours, keep going. It's a very long game and it'll keep you going for a long time, but once you get into it, you'll get addicted as hell. And I don't know if this is my favourite Dragon Quest game. It's between that and 8, but it's definitely up there as one of my absolute favourite games on the Switch. And if you want to play it in 2D, you can. That's another fantastic addition that they added from the 3DS version, which I was so surprised that they did. They put the 2D version of the game back in, and they created the whole game in 2D. That's incredible. I still can't really get over that. It's here now, so you know I can sort of just talk about it. But when I thought about that, when I first heard it about the 3DS version, I was like, the developers have done that, really? Like, that's kind of crazy, to be honest. And you get to travel back to all the previous Dragon Quest worlds in 16-bit, and I could go on about this game for a while, so I'll stop there. I'll just say it's a V5 out of V5. Absolutely, it's fantastic. Just do yourself a favour and play this game. Maybe it'll get you into the Dragon Quest series, and I really hope it does, because it really doesn't get enough love, especially compared to other RPG series out there that might have been disappointing people, like Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. Dragon Quest is, you can always count on a good time from a Dragon Quest game, so give it a chance. Continue on the Dragon Quest love, I picked up the physical copy of Dragon Quest 1, 2 and 3 from PlayAsia, and I actually do a English cover on the way, a custom made one, so I'm happy about that, because unfortunately I got the Asian cover, and I don't mind it too much, but it looks bad on the shelf, so that does hurt my feelings. Now I haven't played any of them yet, unfortunately, as far as collections go. I can see why they've done this, because it wasn't obviously it wasn't made to be a collection, but there isn't even any software for the game. So what I mean is, you know, if you go on Collection of Mana, it says Collection of Mana, click on Collection of Mana, opens up the software, and then you pick what game you want to play. Here, you put the game card in, and all 3 game icons just pop up on the Switch menu. It's a bit disappointing, to be honest, but I wasn't expecting more than that. Yeah, a bit disappointing. I haven't played any yet. I just wanted to show that I got it, so there won't be a ranking for that one, but there it is. Ooh, that's hot. Okay guys, just sorry for this quick cut. I actually had something to do, so I had to bail on the last recording, but we're carrying on. This is why I'm in the new do. Here we are, it's okay, we're carrying on, don't panic. And we're gonna carry on with Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch. This is one of those games that I was talking about earlier that I thought, that's gonna be cannibalized in sales, like, absolutely. I think it released on the same day as Link's Awakening, and a week before Dragon Quest XI, so I have very little faith in this game doing well, unfortunately. It's kind of karma because we got, on the Switch, we got a port of the PS3 version, where the Xbox and PS4 got a remastered version of the game, which I don't know why the Switch didn't get it as well. It's a last gen game. The Tales of Vesperia was a last gen game, and that's been remastered perfectly fine, no compromises. Well, the only compromise I think was that it's not 60 frames per second in certain areas. It was still a gorgeous game, and I don't know why we couldn't get the remastered version, but regardless, it's still a very pretty game. It's of course famous for being a Studio Ghibli collaboration, and the developers of the game, Level 5, actually made Dragon Quest 8 and Dragon Quest 9 too, and I haven't played 9 yet, but 8 is one of my favourite games of all time, so I was like, I'm definitely going to pick this up, because I remember when it first came out, it was one of those games that really intrigued me, and was one of the games that made me want to get a PS3. I was very close to getting one, but I held off on the end. And at the time, I heard a lot of people saying this is like the standard for JRPGs now. And at the time, I believed that JRPG genre wasn't doing too hot. I know Xenoblade Chronicles came out a couple of years before that, but not a lot of people seemed to, it didn't reach the mainstream market like Ni no Kuni did, which was a bit strange really, because with a name like Ni no Kuni, I would have thought people would have been a bit like, oh, what's this silly anime game? But people liked it apparently, so I picked it up and I liked it. I think it's about 50 hours long. I did enjoy it. It was one of those where, if I think back on my experience, some of it was quite a bit of a slog. I think that's mainly to do with the battle system though. The battle system is I'm so 50-50 with it. Sometimes I'm like, when I do something right, I'm like, that's great, that feels really good. But when something goes wrong, I'm like, that's bullshit. It's a very weird mix of real-time RPG like Xenoblade, for example, and turn-based RPG where you select icons from menus and stuff. And sometimes it's quite clunky, and it also has a mixture of Pokemon in there with your Pokemon team building, and you get these little monsters that you can have fight alongside you. My problem with this is that, and bear in mind that I love RPGs, I love getting in menus, I do actually quite like micromanagement. This game took it to the next level because you have 3 characters, each with 3 monsters, each with 3 equipment slots, not to mention the way you can raise their stats with foods, and you can evolve them and all this sort of thing. And so I like the customization, I like the amount there, and also they've all got their own moves and that, but Christ almighty, like when I thought about trying to rearrange my team after maybe not playing the game for a few days, I thought, oh my god, I'm just not going to bother. I'm going to play until something goes wrong, then I'll be like, right, why is that happening? Then I'll sort it out. But that really didn't stick well with me. And the thing is as well is that if you think about Pokemon, for example, imagine if your Pokemon being completely unusable if it didn't have a held item. Now imagine that each Pokemon has 3 held items, and they need to have all 3 items to be viable, because if you don't have items, or if you don't equip your monsters properly with a sword or shield or what have you, they're gonna die quick, and you can get beasted in this game if you're not careful. It's one of those really where I struggled with it from the early to mid game, but then mid game onwards it was piss easy. And I think RPGs do tend to get easier, I suppose, might be the word, because you're always unlocking new abilities. But in this case, it was night and day, and it didn't feel like it was because I got so many abilities. It just, I don't know, there was something about it. It made it a lot easier to manage later on. It might be because of the abilities, I'm not too sure, but it didn't feel like that. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it did get very easy towards the end, which I didn't mind because I was getting quite frustrated with it at the mid game. But overall, I did have a good time with Ni no Kuni. It's not an RPG that I'm going to go back to anytime soon. It's fun, I'll say that. Some bits felt like a slog. The side quests are really bare bones, but if I'm honest, I kind of liked it. Like, it felt like chores, but when I got them done, I felt so satisfied. So I mean, I wish they weren't like that, but at the same time, I didn't like that they were like that. Is that what I'm saying right? Am I saying that right? I liked what I played, I'll just say that. In terms of characters and story, the story was fine. The last third of the game is where it seems to kick off, because the game does a thing that quite a few JRPGs do that I've played in recent years, is that halfway through the game, what you think you've been working towards isn't exactly what you've been working towards, and you can kind of tell in Ni no Kuni. I don't know, it's kind of strange how it's done, because you actually have a cutscene every so often of the villains, working out what they're going to do, what their plans are and stuff, and it's really quite intriguing. And then as you get to the climax of the first half of the game, those become less apparent. The game kind of makes you forget about them. And then in the second half of the game, when it rises back up again, you're like, oh yeah, there's a bigger power at play here and all that sort of thing. Yeah, I did enjoy the story. I did like how personal it was as well to Oliver. To be fair, the characters overall I thought were just okay. I liked Oliver, I thought he was good. I really liked his companion, his fairy companion, Mr. Drippy. Yeah, he was awesome. I loved his accent. Esther, I believe her name is, the girl, she was cool too, and Swain as well. It was a nice little ragtag group. You also get another character, like, right near the end of the game. I don't know, it was almost to the point where I was like, well, I don't know why you bothered putting him in, because it's like the last dungeon. I mean, he was fine too. All the characters were just fine. They did the job. They were good. I enjoyed them. Unfortunately, I think they could have done a lot more with them because a lot of the game isn't voice acted, which is kind of a shame, to be honest, because the voice acting at first I found kind of cheesy, but like not. It kind of made me go ugh, especially Oliver's voice because it's just so high pitched. But actually later, you know, as you sort of get used to it, it's fine. It didn't really bother me too much. And the other voice acting is really good for the most part too. It's all got this whimsical old England style kind of thing to it. It's kind of like Dragon Quest, but not as over the top. And in some aspects, I think that hurts it, because I think if they went more over the top, then the voice acting I would have found a bit more endearing. But for the most part, it's fine. Unfortunately, like I said, a lot of the game just isn't voice acted. It just comes up with text reams. And these text reams sometimes happen when a bigger moment happens in the story and you think this is, you know, this should be a cutscene worthy, this, you know, this reveal or this speech, and you just don't really get that very often, and it doesn't sell the emotion as well, and so it's kind of hard to get engrossed in it as much as I would have liked to. The music was also great as well. Presentation, again, looked fantastic. There's anime cutscenes in there, which it was one of those where they started making loads at the start of the game, and then mid-game they have like very few. I don't think they have any actually, and I was like, you can tell that when they started developing the game, they made it load, and then they were like, wait, this game's quite long, maybe we should dial back, and then they put in quite a few at the end as well, but it was just funny to see that, because you could just sort of tell that's what the development team was thinking. But yeah, Ni no Kuni Breath of the White Witch, I would recommend it. I give it a V3 out of V5. It's not up there with my favourite RPGs, for sure. I just found it good. I didn't find it great, I didn't find it fantastic. I just found it good. I liked it. Oh, actually, something I did forget to mention. This is a big issue I had with the game, and it has been updated now, so I'm not sure this has been patched out, but, and I know a lot of Switch games get this, sometimes the game will crash, and you'll get a message saying a software error has occurred or something, and it'll just close the game. Now, I've had this in quite a few games, even first-party Nintendo ones, but none as prevalent as Ni no Kuni. After the 30-hour mark, I might have got it once, but up to the 30-hour mark, I got it 6 times. And after the second time, I thought, this is just the game. This is an error without the game, I think. So I was saving constantly, because the game doesn't have autosave. So if you're going to play the Switch version, do be wary of that. In fact, because of that alone, I might not even recommend the Switch version. If it has been patched out, fair enough, because like I said, the game did get updated, and I don't believe after the update I did get that error, but it's still something to note. If you're going to play the Switch version, save like fuck, because you will lose a lot of progress if you're not careful. Hello guys, I'm back again. Sorry for the clobber change once again. I actually deleted my recordings for the last session, so that went brilliantly. We're back on, I can see the finish line. This is it. So the next game I want to talk about is Crash Team Racing Nitro Fuel. This is a game developed by Beanox and published by Activision, which is one of the points we'll get to in a bit. But from the get-go, I want to really praise Beanox for putting in just so much content in the game. They put in all the tracks from Nitro Kart, and I'm pretty sure all the characters from that game as well. They must have done, because I'm pretty sure Entrance wasn't in the original game, and he's my boy. He was like one of my first Crash games, so he's my main. And not only that, but they put in more crash carts for you to carts even more carts for you to use, and different tires for you to unlock, and there's a load of customization options in this game, which is really good. But then you also see that's almost what the game revolves around, which we'll get to in a minute. But just a bit of backstory, the only kart races that I've ever really properly played is Lego Racers and Mario Kart, so I never got around to playing the original Crash Team Racing on the PS1. So when I picked up Nitro Fuel, I was really excited for it. It looks fantastic, and it plays really well too. I never really understood why people were so like hell-bent on Crash Team Racing being better than Mario Kart, but now I can sort of see why. The mechanics are, they've got a higher learning curve than Mario Kart. Like I do believe that this game it'll take a bit to get used to. Not too long, but it'll take a bit to get used to. With Mario Kart, anyone could just jump right in. It's definitely a lot more accessible. For example, the biggest thing is the drifting. So in Mario Kart, you don't have to drift, especially in like Wii, because it pretty much just did it for you. But in the later Mario Karts, it's a bit of stiff turning, but drifting is really easy. You just got to, as soon as you turn, you press the jump button and then you wiggle the stick and off you go. With Nitro Fueled, I believe they also added this mechanic onto it from Nitro Kart as well. There's a meter in the bottom corner of the screen, and then once that gets to a certain part in the meter, you've got to time it right and then let go of the boost, and that'll make you go faster. That'll give you the mini turbo, of course. But then you can also chain it up to 3 times, so you can really try and keep the boost going for as long as you can. It's not like snaking, like in Mario Kart DS, for example. It's a bit more nuanced, a bit more. It feels better, to be honest, and when you get good at it, it feels really good as well. Not to mention all the shortcuts you can find on the tracks. I mean, there's multiple shortcuts in each track, but like you can even use the physics to your advantage. I know on a stage called Papu's Pyramid, you can completely skip the last corner of the circuit because you can sort of use the weird momentum of the game, so that when you jump off a ramp, you sort of linger in the air long enough to just sort of skip over to the other side of the turning, which is really weird. But the mechanics, yeah, I absolutely love them in the game. I do think it relies a bit too much on boosting. Once the positions are established, once someone gets in first, someone gets in second, someone gets in third, all the other positions are kind of hard to. It's kind of hard to get further in the race because of the boosting feature, and the power-ups are not that powerful. Some are, I think some have been nerfed actually since I've played it, because I haven't played it in a while. The orb, that is essentially like a blue shell, that got nerfed, I'm pretty sure, but the power-ups are kind of weird anyway. There's not too many of them, and each one doesn't really affect the outcome of the match. Like, the outcome of the match is essentially decided on how good you are at boosting and stuff like that. That puts me off a bit, mainly because that's what I don't like about realistic races, like, like Gran Turismo and stuff. Like, I do enjoy those games, or I did when I used to play them, but nowadays I get kind of bored of them, because once someone's in first, that's it, they've won. Unless they make a stupid mistake, they've won. So there's not really any comeback factor, and I feel like in a kart racing game, you do need some of that. This is coming for someone I'm all right at the game now, so I can win a fair amount, but I still think it's kind of silly. And even when you are first and you're winning and stuff like that, it can become a bit like, well, I'm here now. I'll play the game and win. And to be fair, the game is very satisfying to play, but that's something to take in note, I think. The presentation, though, is very spot on. It looks very much like the Insane trilogy that came out a couple of years ago. Yeah, everyone looks great. I love the redesigns of a lot of the older characters too, like Entrance and whatnot. It's like a redesign, but he still looks like Entrance, so that's fine with me. And on top of the content that Beanox already put in, they also put in DLC extras with the extra content, free content by the way, extra characters, extra tracks, brand new tracks by the way, some of which are the best in the game. And they're all themed around a certain thing as well, and you can do stuff to get more points to all these characters. That's really good. That keeps people playing the game. The only issue I have with it is how often it is. They have one, I think it's like nearly every month since the game's come out, and it just got it felt like playing it like a chore eventually. And this is one of the reasons why I really don't like that format, to be honest. Like a live service almost game, because if the content isn't all in the game at the start, I'm not someone who will play the game, leave it, and then once new content gets added, go back and play more of it. I'll play the game, and then once I'm done with it, I'll be done with it until I fancy coming back. I don't want to feel like I have to go back to get all these new characters and whatnot, because they only last a month, and after that, I believe they'll be paid DLC. So it feels like you've got a limited time to get them, which, it's free, so it's great, but it's like half free. And of course, this does lead into my biggest issue with the game, and the thing that really stopped it being a contender for Game of the Year, to be honest, and that's the pit stop and the microtransactions in the game. Now, at first, Activision said they weren't going to put microtransactions in the game. Eventually they did. They just lied and went against what they said. This really annoyed me specifically because, on principle, I would have just not bought the game if I knew microtransactions were in it or coming to it. I just wouldn't have got it. So, they tricked consumers, and they also tricked reviewers too, after all the glowing review scores that the game got. And it reminded, when I first booted up the game and I looked at the shop to see what I could unlock, that was when it hit me that, wow, I really have been slow to catch up with how modern gaming works in this essence, because I opened it and was just like, why can't I see everything that I want to buy? Why can't I just, why is there not like a tab for characters, for carts and whatever else you can get? Like, I thought, Why can't I just earn the coins and then buy what I want from the shop, like every game used to be, I suppose. But that's the issue of making this more of a live service game that they're trying to go for, which is awful. Especially because I feel like that's really disrespectful to the original game too. This, like I said before, this whole game has just been marred by this fact. And the pit stop by itself isn't a huge deal, but it is one of those where I was just like, there is no reason for you to just not let us buy what we want when, as soon as we open the shop. Like I went on the game and immediately looked for entrance. I was like, where is he? Where's that pink-headed fuck? And he wasn't there, and I had to wait for the shop to rotate so he'll be available for me to grind some coins to get him. And I haven't played in a while, but I've heard the grind has got worse because they keep just putting the prices up in the shop. Obviously the reason why they put the prices up is because they introduced microtransactions to the game. And they've also sort of gimped the online too. Like the online already is not very good. It's very hard to find a match, especially if you're playing with someone else. But they really have kind of gimped it because you have a voting system like you do in Mario Kart, but the longer tracks are the ones that pay out more, so everyone always votes for the longer tracks, and they want to do that so you don't get coins too quickly, and it's just so artificially done, and I really dislike that. But mechanically and when you play the game, it's really fun. But everything else around it, just a greedy business practice, and it's one of the greediest games that I've played, to be honest. And I haven't played a huge amount of greedy games. I try and stay away from them, but they really do annoy me. Because of that, I'm going to give it a V3 out of V5. It would have been a V5 out of V5, to be honest, if it didn't have all these silly outside things coming into it that really affect the game. And like I said, I haven't felt the need to go back to it in quite a long time, whereas Mario Kart, I don't play much anymore because I ain't got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but if I did, I can imagine I'd still be going back to that from time to time. But I don't know, it just feels kind of dirty now, the game, unfortunately, and that's a big shame, to be honest, because Beanox did a really good job with it. Now next up is Astral Chain. This it was a game I was really excited for when it was announced. It's a beautiful looking game. It looks straight out of a manga, to be honest. It's I would say anime, but it's got like these shadings on the characters that made them look like they're from a manga. Yeah, it was really good. It was another quality game from Platinum. This is one of their best titles, I believe. It really combined their classic action gameplay with more detective work and a bit slower gameplay than I'm used to from Platinum. I did actually kind of like that because you had a load of all these different areas to explore, because there's quite a bit of exploration in the game as well, and you can do loads of side quests to get these points to upgrade your Legion, which is what you're connected to. Because in this game, it's one of the more unique games because not only are you fighting because you're a police detective with your baton and your bigger baton and a gun, but you've also got this Legion you can call. So once you call it, you can attack in tandem with the Legion, but you also control the Legion with the other analog stick. But you can do really cool moves like stuff that I didn't think of. At first, all you can do is attack with the Legion, send it out, it'll attack, you bring it back. But eventually, you just start mastering him more, not only from getting more abilities, but from just playing the game. You just understand how the game works more. And there's a really cool move that I like where you can sort of, let's say you've got enemies in front of you, you can sort of send your Legion out and then make sure put the Legion around the enemy, so the chain will go around him, and then you can press a button so that the Legion will pull you and you'll go in the direction of the chain and hit the enemy on the way to the Legion, and it looks really cool. And once you master that, you can get into some really cool fights. Not just fun to play, but visually they just look great. And there's also a move where you can wrap the chain around an enemy to stun them. I really like that one too. There's a load of stuff like that, and like I said, the more you play the game, the more abilities you unlock. It's great. The only things I would say I disliked about the game was some enemies could be a pain in the ass. Like there's one where you'll have to shoot this enemy before you can damage the bigger enemy. It's like this little guy's playing support, and he's zapping the big guy like fucking Palpatine's Force Lightning, and the bigger guy will be all metalled up, so he can not get hit. It can get very frustrating, that, especially because sometimes the little guy is either really high in the air or underground or something, and yeah, that took too long. It took the wind out of the sails, really. But all the characters in the story I liked as well. I thought they had some really fun character designs. There were some really weird things from older games that don't really make a return anymore, but there's this Lappy dog, I can't remember. To be honest, the character of Lappy got really fucking annoying. I really didn't like the voice that was used for Lappy, and he went on for way too long, and because you have a whole tutorial section with him after you've started playing the game, and I was like, I don't like that bit. But then eventually you actually unlock the suit, and you can wear this stupid foam dog suit while you're beating up these demons, and it looks freaking ace. And not many games do silly stuff like that anymore, with these unlockable costumes or what have you, but that was really cool. I will say the story overall is just okay. My biggest issue with the story for sure has to be the fact that your character, you can pick either the boy or the girl. Whichever one you pick is a completely silent protagonist. I really don't know why they did that. They could have been an actual good character, and there's times in the game where you're just like, why aren't you saying anything? It's quite a family dynamic, the game, and you feel like you should be emoting more, and I don't feel like I'm this character. I'm just experiencing this story through him, like some RPGs like Xenoblade, or any other game that has an actual character that you play as, like Bayonetta for example. Like, you experience the game through her. If she was silent, it'd be fucking stupid. So I don't know why they made the silent protagonist this guy or this girl. Probably maybe to save time, because they wanted you to be able to play as a male or female, but they didn't want to have to voice everything, which is stupid, because even the game that I'm going to talk about in a minute did that, and that game is not very good. But yeah, I was very disappointed in that. And then later on, actually, whichever sibling you don't pick, they sort of just tell people what you're thinking, like you're a mute. It was kind of silly. I didn't really like that. There are some points in the story where I thought, wow, okay, it's actually going to change up the game quite a bit, but it never really did. They kind of cop you out a few times, and the story's just okay. It gets very ridiculous towards the end, but it's kind of funny ridiculous, but then the game also feels like it's trying to take itself seriously, so you're like, not too sure about that. And the final boss, especially, like difficulty wise, he was a piece of shit. He had this one hit kill move. I hated that shit. I got really lucky in the end, but I did like the game overall. Just I will say, don't do the post game. That was a whole waste of time. Don't bother with that. But overall, I'll give the game a V4 out of V5. The music was also fantastic. That's definitely a soundtrack that I need to go back and listen to more of, because I get the music in my head all the time. I just haven't gone back and listened to the soundtrack yet, because there's been so many games to come out. But definitely don't overlook Astral Chain. It was one of the better games of the year, definitely. Dragon Quest Builders 2. This is a game that I was very on the fence about getting, because I was really on the fence about getting the first game, and I never did. I never picked it up. And then this one I was like, shall I? And it came out in July. And at that point, I think my last game that I got was in May, so there wasn't a huge amount of games coming out. But then after this, everything came out and it got really messy. I originally got the game because I thought, oh, it's kind of like Minecraft but Dragon Quest, so maybe I can recreate some Dragon Quest towns and stuff, which people have done. But this game actually has a fully fleshed out story. You have your free building area where you can build your own stuff and whatnot, but then there's also story areas where you have to travel to, and it'll teach you mechanics of the game, because there's loads. You'll be able to build your own stuff there. That is an issue I had with the game at first, because what I didn't like about Minecraft is that there's very little focus to it. When I was a bit younger and played it, I didn't really mind that too much, because it was just the excitement of being able to play it. But then over the years, I've been like, I don't really fancy playing it, because there's not really a goal you have to set your own goals. In this game, you can set your own goals in your own like building area and what have you, but there's also goals for you to experience in the story too, like big monsters to fight, new equipment to find, treasure to uncover, stuff like that. And there's a ton of places to explore. Really, and I haven't played Dragon Quest 2, but this game's based on Dragon Quest 2's map. So you might be able to find some areas that, they were in that game, and I was like, oh, it's not nostalgic for me, but because I understand the Dragon Quest series, I really enjoyed it. And it has got that signature Dragon Quest charm to it, so, everything that you love about Dragon Quest is in the game and then some. And to be honest, it might be more accessible to people who aren't a huge fan of RPGs, because you don't need to understand RPGs to play this game. I mean, you don't to play the normal Dragon Quest games, to be honest, because they're really simple, but you've got a ton of stuff to do in this game. There's thousands of things to craft and buildings to build, and there's all sorts of things you can do, and especially because in Minecraft, for example, once you find a village, I'm pretty sure, I don't know the mechanics of Minecraft too much, but pretty sure you can't really control what they do, like you can't really manipulate them, whereas in Builders, you can actually build rooms and certain rooms, and then these NPCs will interact with the rooms in certain ways, like you can build farmhouses and they'll harvest crops and do the work for you and stuff like that. And that is something that is really good in this game, is that especially when you've got to build big structures, you can create blueprints, and then you can tell the villagers of your town, this is what I want built, and then they'll start building it for you. So you've got help. You don't have to do it all by yourself. And of course, there is multiplayer in the game. I unfortunately haven't really experienced that, but I can imagine it's pretty fun. I have experienced visiting other people's worlds, the ones that they put on leaderboards and stuff that get the most votes, and what's the best world and what have you. And these worlds are incredible, but they are nearly unplayable online, because the frame rate is just awful. Like, the frame rate can be pretty bad sometimes in a normal game. Online, it's nearly unplayable, especially in the more complex worlds that you find. And I heard this isn't even exclusive to the Switch version. Like, the PS4 version's still stores as well, which is a bit disappointing. But yeah, Dragon Quest Builders 2, I'll give it an easy V5 out of V5. It was a big surprise to me. I spent a lot more time on the game than I thought I would. There's a crap ton of stuff to do in the post game, which I want to get back to doing, because now that I've finished the game, you've got all the mechanics. I really want to be able to build my own stuff, and I've already seen some really amazing creations by people recreating other Dragon Quest towns and stuff, but I really want to try and do that myself. I really hope there's one of Trodaine Castle out there. I want to be able to explore that in Builders. But yeah, definitely play the game, guys. It's really, really fun. It is more expensive than Minecraft. You know, you'll be able to find it for cheaper nowadays, but I think it's worth it, to be honest. With the amount of gameplay that it offers, like story-wise, it's almost like a full RPG length. Like, it took me around 80 hours to beat the game. It's fantastic. I definitely recommend it. So Dragon Quest Builders 2, it is up there, definitely. Now we come to probably the worst game I played this year, but I did still have some fun with it, and that is Saints Row the Third, the full package. This was quite simply just an awful port of a pretty good game, I hear. I was kind of surprised that they weren't porting Saints Row 4 or any of the more recent ones to Switch, but apparently Saints Row the Third is the fan favourite. And I just at the time finished Grand Theft Auto Vice City, so I thought, well, I'll give Saints Row a go because it's come to Switch, be able to play it anywhere, that sort of thing. But I was quite disappointed in the game. Especially when they're charging about £35 for it. It's not finished. I don't know how on earth they thought it was okay to put out. As soon as I booted up the game, there was a loading screen crash, which apparently was in the original game. So you're like, how on earth have you not patched that out in like the 8 years that the original game came out? How is it still in there? And there's also other loading screen crashes. There was one where I tried to start a mission and the loading screen wouldn't end. So I reset it and I came back onto the same loading screen. It still wouldn't end. I was like, this is bad. But worse than that is the frame rate of the game. Like, it drops down to like 10 frames per second sometimes, and not even really that densely populated areas. They've even tried to patch the game to sort of fix the frame rate and the latency, which is also a massive issue. I was playing Crash Team Racing at the same time as this game, so I was playing 2 games where you're driving, and the difference was night and day. Like, Crash Team Racing was 1-to-1, very precise, no problems. Then I had Saints Row the Third, and it was like you push your analog stick one way, and then a half a second later it does it. It was like almost streaming the game, that it felt that bad. But even the patches haven't really fixed that problem apparently, because the first patch that got released literally, I think it even made the game a bit worse in terms of frame rate. I've heard that a more recent patch has come out since I stopped playing the game that did improve it, but not enough to warrant the price that they're charging for it, I'll just say that. But aside from the awful port, I did try and, I played the game, I spent about 40 hours on it, so I did finish it. It's not completely unplayable, it just gets frustrating sometimes. Eventually you do get used to the latency issue, because your hand-eye coordination just gets used to it. It's almost like playing a game online, like a fighting game online. Eventually you just get used to how the game feels online. But then again, when I went back to Crash Team Racing, I was like, oh my god, it's buttery smooth. But the game itself I did find quite fun, trying to ignore all the port issues. I did find it fun. It was quite a drab game, to be honest. Like, it came out around that time where a lot of PS3 and 360 games were just really drab. There was no colour to them. They just looked really depressing. And this game does carry that on. Like, even Grand Theft Auto 4 had that problem, I'm pretty sure, whereas 5 brought back the vibrancy and stuff like that. The game just isn't vibrant. It's not a pretty game at all. The character models look fine. The voice acting I thought was hit and miss. For the most part, it's pretty good. I think the big issue with the game not being as funny as I would have liked is the writing. The writing's just not as strong as like Grand Theft Auto games. And the voice actors, they're good, but they're definitely not as talented as some of the Rockstar ones that have been pulled in. The upgrade system though is brilliant. That's something that I thought Grand Theft Auto could really use, but there's a lot of stuff in this game that's really video gamey and it wouldn't really fit in the Grand Theft Auto setting. So I can understand why Saints Row have done it, but there's just not that level of polish that Rockstar games have, and you can really see it, especially if they're used to playing Rockstar sandbox games. You can really see, you can see the cracks in this game for sure, and not just in terms of how the game looks and whatnot, but also just gameplay design decisions. But there are some like the upgrade system which I do really enjoy, because you have this like Saints ranking, I'm pretty sure, once you get enough points for that, which you can do by getting doing stupid stuff. Like, you can get really close to a car and not hit it, and then you'll get like 50 points for it or what have you. But then you can get upgrades for it, like you sprint longer, you get more rounds in your gun, you'll be able to dual wield, and there's some really fun ones as well, like being able to call in your homies, as they call it. You can also bring in a helicopter to help you out, and all these upgrades are really cool, and I ain't unlocked them all yet, but there's some really fun ones. There's also some really weird situations in the game, like really over the top situations, which is one of the reasons why people like the series. Is like there was one where I had to chase this guy while I was naked on this like cart, like one of those horse carts from like the 1920s or what have you. I was on one of them, like half naked with a dildo in my hand, and I was trying to like destroy the other guy's car or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was fucking stupid though, but it was great fun. Something I also loved that the game did was the mixtape function. So obviously in this game it also has radios like Grand Theft Auto did, but not as good as Grand Theft Auto's radios, by the way. The music selection isn't as good, and the hosts are nowhere near as good. But in this game they kind of alleviate you of the host, because you can just create a mixtape of all these songs you want to listen to from the radio, so you can just pick which ones you want, put them on the mixtape, and then only listen to the songs you want, which is great. I love it. I don't know why Grand Theft Auto wasn't taking that idea. Mind you, I love their radio stations usually anyway. The only thing I don't like about it is that the mixtape isn't random. Like when you start the game, it'll always start from the top song you've got on the playlist, and you can't sort them in the way that you want. It's always, I'm pretty sure it's always alphabetical. It's either alphabetical or it's by which radio comes first in the list. When I found myself listening to the mixtape, I'll be listening to like the same 5 songs over and over again, even though I've got like 20 songs on there, so that was a bit annoying. The DLC that they've also included in the game is kind of weird, because they only included 2 DLC packs, whereas I'm pretty sure there was 3 or 4 in the original game, and I didn't include the latter 2 because they wanted to make the game more balanced. And I thought, well, that's a load of hooey, because one of the DLC packs gives you like a hover bike with a Gatling gun at the start of the game. So I was like, this is just going to make the game a cakewalk. I didn't use it because I wanted to have some challenge, but I was thinking if I really wanted to, I could just breeze through the game with this. So I don't know why they did that, to be honest. But overall, guys, I did have fun with the game. I'll give it a V3 out of V5, definitely. It's just a really bad port, but the game itself was fun. Definitely not up there with Grand Theft Auto. It was just some silly fun for a while. There's a crap ton of like game mechanics to enjoy. Like I said, it can be very video gamey at times, but they're not all fleshed out, but some of them are really fun. And there is a co-op to the game as well, which unfortunately I didn't get to experience, but I imagine that's really quite fun as well, if it works fine, because I can imagine the game being in co-op, but it can just be unplayable at times. I don't know if it is, but I can imagine it will be with this port. But I hope that they do patch it again to make it playable to some extent. But if you wanted to pick this up on Switch, pick it up on the cheap. I'd say around £15-20 will probably be the price you should pay for it, because at the moment it's definitely not worth it. So next up is Link's Awakening, the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. This is a game that I was not planning on getting because it costs like the deed of my house, which it has no right to do, but we'll get to that. Now, I originally played Link's Awakening on the 3DS eShop, on the the DX version, and it is the only 2D Zelda apart from Zelda 2 that I really just didn't get into. I'm not too sure what it was. I found it kind of aimless sometimes. I just really didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would do. And this game is very faithful to it, so unfortunately it didn't do what Majora's Mask 3D did for me, where that remake of Majora's Mask made me absolutely adore that game, whereas the original I wasn't too big a fan of. I enjoyed the remake. I managed to finish it at least, and it still had those Zelda moments where I managed to get through a dungeon or do a certain puzzle, and I was like, you get that, oh yes, that satisfying feeling. I did have fun with it, but overall I just thought it was okay. It didn't blow me away. I did really enjoy the setting. That is one thing I really give credit to Link's Awakening, is it's got this weird mystical setting. Things don't seem quite right. There's always this weird thing that, in the background you're like, what's going on here? It feels too, I don't know, something just doesn't feel right about it. And that's really good, because that's what Majora's Mask sort of gave us as well, and I really like that feeling. It's kind of hard to put my finger on it, to be honest. I did enjoy the game. I just did not enjoy it as much as titles like Oracle of Seasons. I haven't played ages yet, but Minish Cap. I just didn't really enjoy it in that way. I think maybe because the story is kind of in the background, maybe that's one of the things, because it does feel like I'm just going around doing stuff half the time. And I know the dungeons are well designed, I had fun with it. I just didn't feel like I had enough substance to really make me enjoy it that much. And that's one of the reasons why I really have given it quite a bit of flack, is the price is ridiculous. Like this is £50. This is £50. This is another example of what I feared when the Switch, it got announced. And I was thinking, all right, if all the Nintendo games are going to be on that console, they need to price them accordingly. They can't just all put them at £50 or £40 just because it's on that system. Like, it needs to be a game by game basis, because this game is the same price as Dragon Quest 11 or Breath of the Wild or Super Mario Odyssey. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't have the replayability of those games at all. It doesn't have the amount of content. It doesn't have the substance, like I said, and it doesn't even have the polish of those games either. Like, this is a very pretty looking game. Don't get me wrong. Best looking game on the Switch, I've heard some people say. Do not agree with that at all. The shading is great. The colours are great. Don't get me wrong. The art style is also, it's all right. It's hit and miss, to be honest. Like, it works, but because of that art style, it also makes me think it shouldn't be that expensive. Yeah, this is a ridiculously expensive game. I don't know why it's that much. The music is great, presentation is great, the gameplay is fun, the stuff around it, there's just something about it that I can't really put my finger on. It kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy IX in a way, where I know many people love the game and it's kind of held in high regard, but for some reason I just couldn't get into it. Maybe I'll play it again in a few years, I don't know, because it isn't a very long game, so it's easy to get through. I don't really recommend the game unless you find it for, I'm not even joking, as little as around £15–20. That's as much as it should be, because it's about 10 hours long, not very long at all. It hasn't got a huge amount of content in the game. It hasn't got anything added, I'm fairly sure, to the remake. It's just very faithful to the original. In fact, it took out a camera side quest from the original game, so I mean, technically it's got less content maybe. I know they added more pieces of heart and seashells to find and stuff like that, but I mean, I wasn't bothered about finding that. I found it fun, just not even close to worth the amount you need to pay for it though, so I would rate for a price drop for sure. V3 out of V5. So next up is easily the biggest surprise of the year, and that is Katana Zero. Now, I already did a FATthoughts video on this when I first played the game, because I enjoyed it that much, but this really is an incredible indie game that it really did blow me away. I mean, I saw the trailer and I heard the music and was like, this looks really kind of slick, so I'm going to take a chance and give this a go, especially because it's not that expensive. I think it's around £10 on the eShop, which is a bargain in my opinion, because this is one of those games, it's like Link Awakening. It's not very long, but I just had so much fun with the game. The music is great, the pixel art is fantastic. It's a great game to speed run once you get really good at it, because you can just speed through levels, but that does bring me to say that the game is quite short. I would have liked to see it a bit longer, or just have a bit more content. I know there's DLC coming, but God knows how long that's going to take for it to come out. I'm really looking forward to that and the second game. Story-wise, I enjoyed it as well. It had just enough strange drug kind of thing going on, not turn me off, but keep me interested, because it also had some resemblance of a story. Things were going on that did connect to each other, and it's one of the reasons why I liked Hotline Miami 2 more than the first one. Is the first one was just complete drug trip and nothing really seemed to make sense. It wasn't a huge deal for me, but I did prefer the direction of 2, where things happen and you could put stuff together, but it was still really strange, but you could put stuff together more often, and that's what Katana Zero was like. That's what I really enjoyed about the game. My favourite thing, like I said before, is absolutely easily the music. The soundtrack is fantastic. Everything just fits and plays at a perfect time. There's secrets for you to find, extra swords and stuff like that, and it is one of those games where I do find it replayable, because although there's a huge amount of ways the game can change, I just have so much fun with it, and it's just such a joy to play. So easily one of the best games of the year in my opinion, Katana Zero. V5 out of V5 for sure. It's kind of hard to talk about a load of it without going into spoiler territory, but yeah, definitely give it a go. I really do recommend it. It's one of my highest recommendations of the year for sure. Katana Zero. At long last, we've come to the last game on the list that I've played this year, and that is A Hat in Time. This is one that I haven't finished yet, so I'm not going to rank it, but I am about 10 hours into the game, so I think I'm over halfway, because on my percentage completion bit it says around 60%, so I'm over halfway, so I feel like I've experienced most of the game, and it is really, really fun. It's been a really fun, nostalgic trip back to other platformers that I used to love, like Mario 64 and some of the PlayStation platformers too, like Ratchet & Clank and Rayman 2. I really got Rayman 2 vibes from quite a few areas in this game, especially the creepy forest. It reminded me of the marshes in Rayman 2, and that was really fun. This was a really well made 3D platformer, I've got to say. It was really fun set pieces, because you have to collect these time pieces, but it was really fun set pieces to get to those time pieces, and all these wacky things you've got to do, and you can find new hats and new badges to sort of change up your abilities to keep things interesting. There's a lot of exploration to do to find extra relics, and in all these sandbox worlds. There's some worlds that kind of follow a more linear path. Not worlds, but like more missions you've got to do in these worlds that follow a more linear path, kind of like Mario Galaxy, which I didn't mind because you have these more open worlds as well. So it's not like the whole game is based around this one design philosophy. It explores many different design philosophies, and I really did like that. There are a few things that bug me about the game though. The presentation is one of them. It's very colourful and endearing, but for I think it's a £30 game, you know, like a £30 nearly full priced game. Yeah, no, I think this should have been quite a bit cheaper. The physical edition, fair enough, that was around £30, but the digital edition with the first pack of DLC, I think should have been around 20, and on Switch it's 25, I think, or 30 online on the digital store, which is kind of ridiculous. I don't mean to talk about price so much in a lot of these games, but the price only sticks out to me when I think that's kind of ridiculous for what is offered. And there's a lot of content here and stuff to enjoy, but the game doesn't have the polish or the presentation to really sell itself to be that expensive. Voice acting was also really not my cup of tea. It was really, I guess, childish. Some of them are great, like I like the Mafia Town guy, but I actually, there's a badge in the game where you can make voices turn into, you know, the Banjo-Kazooie Mumbo Jumbo, and I bought that badge as soon as I could because I absolutely I really kind of hated Mustache Girl's voice actress. I really didn't enjoy that at all. Obviously the game can be played by kids and whatnot, but you know, it's very fun for adults too, so I was like, this one was just really high-pitched and childish, and I was not a fan of it at all. So, and I can't really comment on more of the voice acting because after that was such a bad impression on me that I was like, no, I'm keeping that badge on for the rest of the game. And that was kind of bad as well because that badge takes up a badge slot, so really I only had 2 badge slots for the entire game. So yeah, I wasn't a fan of that at all. The music though is fantastic. That is part of the sound design that I really like. The sound design is great in general, apart from the voice acting. I'm not going to generalise that. I'm just going to say the voices that I heard toward the start of the game, I really was not a fan of, especially Mustache Girl. Well, I won't rip on her too much, but the music is absolutely top notch. There's some really good tracks in there. I can't remember the guy who made the soundtrack or composed it, but I've definitely got some favourites on my playlist now. But I'm really excited to keep playing A Hat in Time, and I believe if I finished it, it would have definitely been higher on the list for this year. Alas, I haven't finished it, so I'm not going to rank it, but I do recommend it for sure, especially if you are a fan of old school 3D platformers. But this modernises it a bit more, so you know, the worlds are a bit smaller, and it keeps its ambition in check, I think, which is something that I haven't played the first Ukulele, but a lot of people criticise that game for just being a bit too big and needlessly tedious at times, and I don't think there's been a tedious mission in A Hat in Time yet. Yeah, Hat in Time, brilliant stuff. So with all that said, guys, this comes to the game of the year. As you can see, I've got my tier list somewhere around here, over yonder. I don't know where I'm going to put it, but it'll be on screen anyway. This is the list for this year, and of course the ones that are up for the game of the year with the V5s out of V5. Overall, I would say it was very close between Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition and Dragon Quest XI's, but I'm going to give it to Dragon Quest XI's. That was an incredible game, so much content. I'm still playing it now. It was out of this world, to be honest. I can't believe they put that much into one game. It's got no DLC, which I love. I love that there's no DLC. I'm very much against DLC these days. I'd rather just not have it. I'd rather have a complete game at the start of it and then nothing, because game coming took the piss. But anyway, that's a discussion for another day. But yeah, I loved that game. I loved most of the games I played this year. I mean, my least favourite one was Saints Row, and I still had a lot of fun with it. The Switch had a variety, actually, quite a lot of variety of games this year, so it was a good year for the Switch, I think. It is starting to feel a bit more of a, it feels like it doesn't have its own identity in terms of its library, because a lot of its library is coming from older games, Baldur's Gate and stuff like that on it now. There's just so much on the system that I'm like, when I think of Switch, I don't know really what games to think of apart from like Xenoblade 2, because that's not my favourite game on the system. But Dragon Quest XI's is definitely up there. It's probably my second favourite game on the system. Behind that, I think it probably is. Like I said before, everything I love about that game, it's got the Dragon Quest charm that I love, a shit ton of content to do, an amazing story which goes in different directions to other Dragon Quest stories, which is brilliant. The characters were absolutely spot on. There's a ton of character interaction in the game, like the party talk feature and all that. There's a ton of side quests to do which don't feel like chores, they're just really fun to do. There's a ton of different characters to find. The voice acting is fantastic. I love the 2D sections of the game. You could play the whole game in 2D. That's that's incredible. It's like a whole new way of playing it. It's like a brand new SNES game almost that never came out. There's so much to do in this game. It really irks me sometimes that just how it doesn't seem to have gotten the love that it deserves. I definitely love it. It's without a doubt my favourite game of the year. Tales of Vesperia, like I said, came very, very close. It was between those two, but I just had to inch it to Dragon Quest XI. They got the best post game that I've ever played in a game ever, I would say. There is a demo on the eShop. That's very long actually, and you can carry that into the main game if you enjoy that. So there's no reason not to give it a try. So but that's all for me, guys. Sorry for the jump cuts around this video and the lighting changing and all that sort of thing. But these were my games of the year, and I had a lot of fun talking about it. So that's all from me, but I will see you next time, guys. So thanks for watching.
Blow off, wanker!